All right, so I would like to get this session started, and we are excited and looking forward to the brief presentation of research projects 2, and we have 4 projects represented by their leaders. The first is by Ogunbiyi, we have Musili, we have Ngale, and we have Akin-Otiko. We'll follow the same structure like yesterday. We'll take all presentations at once, concurrently, and then that will give us time at the end for Q&A and a conversation. So without much ado, I would like to invite Dr. Olatunde Ogunbiyi to unmute and give his presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good day to every one of us. It is my prayer that this engagement will add to all our knowledge by the grace of God. I'm the project leader for the title, An Integrated Approach Towards Tolerance on Shared Sacred Spaces in Nigeria. However, the area I am here in Nigeria is the epileptic supply of electricity cannot be banked upon. So I have instructed the co-PI to take this session. I'm hoping that the things will be better when next I have to present. Thank you, sir.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Ogunbiyi. Tayo, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have the floor. 1 minute is gone, so you have 9 minutes.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to share my screen. Okay, I hope you can all see the screen.
Not yet. Okay, yeah, we have it.
Okay, sir. I'd like to appreciate everyone. So, our title for the Ogunbiyi group is an integrated approach towards tolerance on sacred spaces in Nigeria. The group is comprised of 6 scholars. Ogunbiyi Olatunde, who is a scholar in comparative religion, specializes in African religion and media studies. Uwe Yetayo, an anthropologist, specializes in ethnography and knowledge production. Osayomi Tolu is a geographer, specializes in medical geography, environmental studies, and the use of GIS. Wadima Idemudia Eunice is a theater artist, specializes in performance studies, space discourse, and applied theater. Titus Olusegun is a musicologist, specializes in ecomusicology and the intersection of sound and sacred spaces. Ogunbiyi Oladimeji specializes in culture, identity, and communication and media. The rationale for our study is that there is a presumption that the relationship between African indigenous religion and other religions is premised mostly on intolerance and the struggle for supremacy. And the major major source of this intolerance is found in the shared sacred space. The shared sacred space is not a recent subject of discourse among scholars, but when we look at it, is a site these are space and sites for symbols of contest, power domination, which results into inter-religious and ethnic conflict, claiming lives and properties. However, these shared sacred spaces are really viewed as a place where there is an inseparable element of faith and culture, communal living, neighborliness, and peaceful coexistence among adherents of different religions. And this is the rationale for our study to look at the sacred space as a place for communal living, peaceful coexistence among adherents of different religions. The aim of the project is basically to create an avenue for the emergence of a counter narrative to the dominant narrative of contested sacred sites and competitively shared spaces. We also intend to develop a multi-integrated approach towards a grounded theology of tolerance. Um, our specific objectives for the study is to investigate the patterns of interreligious harmony that promotes indigenous African values about tolerance among different religious communities that share sacred spaces in Nigeria. We also want to look at the element that sustains the cooperative attitudes on the shared spaces, and analyze these elements in terms of symbols that they actually articulate, and align the indigenous values that are responsible for tolerance in the shared space, and then to observe the attitudes of members of the communities towards these religious practices and symbols. We have four sites that we are looking at. There is Subi Hills in Kwara State in Nigeria. Is a sacred space in Ilorin, the northern region of Nigeria, where Christians and Muslims converge to worship their Creator and at the same time. It's also a place historically that has been used as a place of refuge for warriors. The second site is at Orelashe Shrine. It's a deity in Ilawe Ekiti, in Ekiti State. The deity forbids people of the town and the king and the deities devotees from coming to the shrine on Sundays, as they will be off or off duty to go to church on Sundays and honor Jesus Christ. And on that particular on Sundays it does not perform miracles, but every other day it performs a miracle. In Ede, we'll be looking at the family networks, because Ede is synonymous for the families, both Christians, Muslims, and African traditional adherents, being in the same family, and they all celebrate each other's festivals together. So, and but there is still this dichotomy and conflicts in terms of relationship that we see in Nigeria, and so we see Ede community as a shared sacred space. We'll also be looking at the beaches in Lagos, selected beaches, where there are sacred activities for all religions in Nigeria, and the positive side to investigate the dynamics of interaction between the various religions practiced in Nigeria. Theoretically speaking, we'll be looking at the project as viewed as a source of hope for peaceful interfaith engagement and communal coexistence that promotes based on African religions, traditional values, and spirituality via grounded theology. We'll be looking at how different religions in these sites coexist and promote tolerance. And so it creates this will give us the creativity to examine the concept of tolerance on shared sacred space from a theological, narrative, humanistic, and ethnographic perspectives. Methodologically, we'll be using ethnography, participants and non-participant observation, in-depth interviews, unstructured and open-ended interviews as of a natural conversation, and we'll be using key informant interview. Thank you for listening. Thank you, sir.
All right. So thank you, Tayo, for that very succinct presentation of your project, and thanks for keeping to time. So I think we've gained 2 minutes, and I would like to invite Dr. Telesia Musili from Kenya to speak on her project. Telesia? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to share my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen already.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, could you spotlight Telesia, please. Nembudo or Alisa.
Telesia, please put your video on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, greetings all, and thank you for this session. We'll present to us our study, and the topic is African value of communality and religious experiences in virtual space amidst COVID-19 pandemic, a comparative study of 3 selected churches in Kenya.
Could you put it on slideshow? Then it's easy to.
Yes. Good. Yes, okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah, just direct to the background of the study. The 21st century is characterized by growth of internet technology that has impacted greatly on the African social value of communality. And communality in the African context implies the concept of shared interests in the working together to meet the inevitabilities of life for common humanity. And so communalism in African setting promotes unity, togetherness, brotherliness, and cooperation, values that are indications of working relationships in all spheres of human life, up to including religion and its practice. So we realize that the advent of outbreak of COVID-19 challenged physical and social interactions that necessitate socialization and communalism. And so the containment measures of COVID-19 disrupted our religious communities immensely. And so this was prompted by the cancellation of physical worship services, ceremonies such as burials, weddings, and closure of physical places of worship that made physical communal fellowships unattainable. And so as a result, socializing moved to virtual space, and this prompted the people to deconstruct, construct, and reorganize their religious experiences. And one of the major reorganizations was that religion was practiced or wasn't online. And so this became an inevitable reality for most churches. And so many dimensions of human engagement, including church services, were streamed online using different modes, such as Facebook, Google Meet, and Zoom. And so we do note that the digital era facilitating virtual church service now becomes an historical shift and an African reality that is changing every aspect of our lives. And so from the preliminary literature, we realize that technology has been beneficial in providing information, but can also be detrimental since it can influence and alter values and principles that underpin societal traditions and culture. And so we note that communalism still holds a grip in African intellectual imagination, regardless of the challenging times. And so our specific objectives in this study would be to examine how adoption of virtual space intersects with the African value of communality and religious experiences among 3 churches in Kenya that will be discussed in the methodology section. That is the PCA Presbyterian Church of East Africa, Christ is the Answer Ministries, and Nomia Luo Church, which is an African independent church. We'll also evaluate the modes of operation and postures in relation to communality and religious experiences in the virtual spaces among these churches. We will also hope to analyze the impact of virtual space adoption on African value of communality and note the emerging religious experiences among these churches, where we will hope to link religious practices and experiences in the virtual spaces to existing theories that will offer concepts to guide future systematized Christian engagement within this virtual religion. And so as our study is comparative, we will examine the impact, or rather the adoption and the impact of this virtual space on the African value of communality and religious experiences among the adherents of these three churches. And so we will conduct the study in three diverse churches in Nairobi County, Kenya. Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. And so owing to its metropolitan nature, we hope to have a representative data and sample of the three churches selected. And we will work with Presbyterian Church of East Africa, which is an historic mission church, Christ is the Answer Ministries, a Pentecostal church, and Namia Luo Church, which is the first African independent church in Kenya. So these three churches were purposefully selected owing to their virtual presence and other factors depending on the church that is being focused on. And so grounded theology, methodology, theory will be utilized. And so the study will also utilize qualitative ethnographic methods to examine the formation, the adoption, and development of utilization in these churches and comparisons of the same. And so the significance of this study is that the project will reveal how African religious communities are adapting to the virtual space for religious engagement and its impact on the African value of communality. We also hope that we will offer guidance to the best practices of embracing online platforms for religious engagement owing to the value of communality. We also hope to enrich the academic by offering theorizing framework to guide analysis of religious engagements in the virtual space, keeping to the value of communality in a sustainable way in Africa. And so our team comprises of 7 members. We have Dr. Linda Ochola, who has a background in missiology studies. We have Reverend Dr. Julius Kibinchi in biblical studies and post-colonial theology. Dr. Samuel Duhati with an expertise in practical theology and gender studies. Dr. Lorraine Maseno coming from sociology and feminist studies. Dr. Fancy Cherono with bringing in an expertise on African traditional religion. Reverend Lydia Chemei, a biblical scholar and gender studies, and then myself coming from religious studies background and bioethics. So this marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, so thank you, Telesia. Could you stop sharing? All right, so thank you very much. I think there's a conspiracy here where all of you have conspired to keep to time, even not to use up your time. So this is very encouraging. And yes, I would like to also mention that the first presentation by Dr. Ogunbiyi's group, this is a project led by Professor Hansels, and the immediate presentation by Dr. Musili is a project led by or advised by Professor Pasitao. And so we move on to the next presentation by Dr. Samuel Ngale. I assume that this is going to be presented in Portuguese, I think preferably. So I would encourage you to migrate, look at the interpretation globe window and select English, and then you'll get the interpretation. So let me now leave the floor to Samuel.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Boa tarde. Good
All
afternoon.
of you. Well, I need to find my presentation. Actually, it's on. Okay, so how can I retrieve this? All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is to open my.
You have a PowerPoint?
Yes, I have it in PowerPoint.
Okay.
So, but can everyone see it?
No, you have to say share screen. You have
Okay.
to share screen it.
So where do I go from
at the
now?
bottom of your, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there should be several options. In the middle, there is one that says share screen, an icon, share screen. Just press that, and then you'll get some options.
Where I am. Okay. Share screen. Okay, where is that? All right. Yes, I got it.
And then click on the file itself, before it's, in case you have several windows open.
Okay. I go to my computer and then the file itself. How about now?
Not yet. It's not coming yet.
Hmm.
Did you click on the file itself and then say share?
File itself and then share. Okay. Well, I send it to Nelly. Maybe she can help me on this one. Well, okay.
Otherwise, do you want to just present without us seeing it? You can just go through your presentation and then.
I will try to get it for you as well while you're talking.
If the file is open, Samuel, if the file is open on your computer, then the procedure is.
Oh, it's coming. Edson is trying to do that.
Here.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, do a slideshow. No, not that. The next two buttons.
The next two buttons.
Yeah, the one that looks like a wine glass.
Okay. Got it. This one.
Okay. Just to let you know that 4 minutes of your time is gone. I'm joking.
No problem. I'm going to be fast.
All right. So go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, boa tarde, mais uma vez. Eu peço
Good
para
afternoon once again,
tradução.
and I asked for translation to my presentation. Okay?
Okay. Então,
Okay,
título
then the title
era
of my
Valores e Experiência
project
Religiosa
is
de
Values and
Moçambique.
Religious Experience of the Tsongas of South Mozambique.
Pressupostos para uma teologia
Assumptions
fundamentada.
for a grounded theology.
Yeah. Então,
And
neste âmbito, let's see. Bem, aqui há uma introdução sobre o
and there's an
seminário.
introduction on our seminary.
Vou passar isto rápido.
And I'm going to go through this very briefly.
Então, o seminário conta com
And so our seminary
5 pesquisadores.
has 5 researchers.
Os nomes estão lá, o professor
The
Dr.
names are
Devaka
there.
Nordran, que está
Devaka Pramordman, who's working with us.
Emory University.
Emory University.
O professor Dr. Henrique Machado, que está em
Dr.
São Paulo
Enrique Machado, who is in São Paulo right now.
O Dr. Edson
Dr.
Utui,
Edson
que é
Hutui,
especialista em
who is an
educação,
expert in education
currículo e
and
música.
curriculum and music.
E o mestre reverendo
And
Antônio Mabongo,
we also
que
have
é
Master Reverend Antonio
teologia e
Mabongo,
antropologia.
who is an expert in theology and anthropology.
E temos então a assistente também que está ali.
We also have our assistant who was the last name.
Então,
So
eu gosto de começar pelo resumo.
I like to start by the summary, actually.
Há debate entre os
There
teólogos
is a
africanos
discussion
nesses dias,
among theologians these days
que se centra na questão de o que a
regarding
África pode
what
dar a cristianismo
Africa
do
can
mundo.
contribute to world Christianity.
E nós no seminário estamos
And
engajados
in the
nesse debate.
seminary, we are engaged in this debate, in this
Temos
discussion.
questões de clima,
We
questões
do have
climáticas,
issues related to
temos
climate.
também a
We
questão da
also have
relevância do discurso
issues
africano
related
teológico.
to the relevance of the African theology discourse.
Então,
And
a nossa
so
pergunta
our
que eu vou dizer no
question
momento
and the
emerge deste
question
debate.
that we are asking in this discussion is,
Então, a pergunta tem a ver com
the
o que
question
é que
is,
faz os Tsongas
what do Tsongas do
sobreviver às
in
intempéries da
what allows
modernidade
them
e da
to
pós-modernidade?
experience the problems of modernity and post-modernity?
Quais são os
What
valores e
are the
experiências religiosas
values
dos Tsongas do
and
sul de Moçambique?
religious experiences that they have in South Mozambique?
O que é que, olhando para
What-
estas experiências, pode
what-
emergir como
What can we see
pressuposto para uma
stemming
teologia
from these
fundamentada?
experiences as assumptions for grounded theology?
Então, estamos a olhar
And
especificamente
so
para
we are
grupo
specifically looking at one group
na província de Gaza, no sul de
in
Moçambique.
the Gaza province in South Mozambique.
Então, a pergunta
And
como eu
so,
tinha,
as the question, as I had said,
como é que se
is
dá a negociação de espaços e
how
valores
is
culturais, práticas
this
religiosas
negotiation of
convencionais dos
space
Tsongas?
between cultural values and the conventional religious practices among the Tsongas?
Contexto tem a ver com
The context
a igreja,
is related to
protestante,
the Protestant church,
onde a formação teológica é feita de
in
currículo
which
ainda muito ocidentalizado.
theological training is still carried out through a more Western curriculum.
Mas sabemos que estes pastores,
And
estes
we know that these
evangelistas
pastors, these
saem de
evangelists,
comunidades
they
locais,
get out of their own communities, their own local communities,
local communities, onde os aspectos, valores,
in which the
experiências
values, experiences that they have
ainda são
are
maioritariamente
actually
Tsongas, não é?
still very Songa.
Então, o objetivo geral
So
dessa
the
pesquisa
general
é
goal
contribuir
of
para uma
our
teologia
research
fundamentada
is to contribute to building grounded theology,
e para nós
and
colmatarmos com
for
este objetivo
us,
geral,
for us to be
a
connected to
pesquisa
this
desdobra-se
general
em
goal, the
analisar a
research
aproximação de
will
culturas
then
tradicionais e
analyze
cristãos
this
influenciados
connection
pelo Ocidente.
between traditional cultural values and the theology influenced by the West,
Identificar elementos
also
comuns
identifying common
entre estas
elements
esferas
among these
religiosas,
two realms,
né? As esferas religiosas, né? Entre duas
among
esferas,
these
cristianismo
two
e
educational spheres
num
between
contexto-
education and religion, and
num contexto moçambicano moderno e
in the
pós-moderno.
modern and postmodern Mozambican context.
Finalmente, identificar os valores culturais,
Finally,
e
identifying
espirituais dos
cultural
Tsongas
and spiritual
fazem
values
estas
of this
comunidades
people that
sobreviverem a estas
allowed
situações
these communities to really
moderno
survive
e
between
pós-moderno.
all the challenges that are imposed by modernity and postmodernity.
Mas também estamos a pensar em
But
conceber
also, we are
plano
considering
curricular para a
how
teologia
we can have
africana,
a curricular plan for African theology
que tenham em conta estas
that will
questões
take into
colocadas, que tenham em conta
consideration
em
all the issues
responder,
that are mentioned and
em
being able
contribuir
to really
para uma
contribute
construção de uma teologia fundamentada.
to a grounded theology.
Então, o projeto a este
Therefore,
momento
right now,
está fragmentado
our
em
project is fragmented in
temas individuais para cada pesquisador.
different individual topics for each researcher.
O primeiro é Kupatha, que é
And
uma
so the
cerimônia
first one
religiosa.
is Kupatha, which is a religious ceremony,
O bem-estar,
well-being,
a religião e educação,
religion and education,
e música
and religious
religiosa.
music.
E por fim, vamos ver no
And
fim que vamos construir
in the end,
currículo
we
de
will be
teologia.
able to build this curriculum, this theological curriculum.
Então, o local da realização
So,
desta pesquisa,
where will this research take place?
obviamente, será em Moçambique,
Obviously, it will be in Mozambique
num grupo localizado de
and in
Tsongas,
a group of Songas.
portanto, no sul de Moçambique.
So, in the south of Mozambique,
Os Tsongas são grupo
Songas
largo,
are
que
a
compreende
very
Xanganas, Rongas,
large
Chongas,
group. It
Matsas e Tongas.
comprises of 5 different subgroups: Chonga, Ronga, Kopi, Malawa, and one last one. And
Estão
so
localizados na província de
they are
Gaza,
located
no
in the
distrito de
Gaza province,
Manjakazi e na vila
in
sede
Malandakazi, and in the main village
e Shibonzane.
in Shibonzane.
Então, qual será o produto que
So,
esperamos no fim?
what is the product that we expect to achieve
Nós,
in our research? Well,
uma vez teremos a data toda nas nossas mãos,
when we have all the data in our hands,
vamos
we will
analisá-la
be
e
able
deixar ela
to
falar.
analyze it and allow it to speak to
E,
us.
obviamente,
And
quando
obviously,
isso estiver feito,
when all of
esperamos
this
produzir
is
livro sobre
done,
valores e
we
experiências
hope
religiosas.
to write a book on the values and religious experience of this
Dos
group,
Tsongas de Moçambique.
of
Né?
the Songas in Mozambique.
E que estes
And
valores
these
serão a
values
plataforma para a
will
teologia
be the
fundamentada.
platform for a grounded theology.
Portanto, temos aqui propostas de capítulos
So
que são
we
capítulo
have
4,
the
2,
proposals
religião
of each
bem-estar,
chapter. Chapter 1, Kupaha. Chapter 2, religion and well-being.
o capítulo 3, religião e
Chapter 3,
educação,
religion and education.
e o capítulo
And
4,
chapter 4,
música.
religious music.
Estes capítulos ainda vão estender,
And
porque ainda tem
these
duas
chapters will
propostas
still
ainda para
be
analisar,
extended
para
because we
construir o
still have a
livro.
lot to analyze.
Os artigos,
The
pensamos também em publicar em
papers,
artigos,
we consider that they will be published in different scientific journals.
e por fim,
And
vamos
we also
conceber currículo de
want
teologia
to
com conteúdos
write a
culturais que vamos
curriculum
apanhar lá.
with cultural content of the existing disciplines.
E este currículo pode, ainda
And
estamos a
this
pensar se vale a pena ser
curriculum
módulo ou
will
vale a pena
be,
ser uma,
we will decide if it should be a module
uma saída de graduação
or
para o curso de teologia.
something that will allow people to study when they go and leave their theology courses.
Então, em resumo,
So,
esta bolsa que nós
our
temos de pesquisa emerge, quer dizer, vem,
presentation. The grant that we are receiving
vem possibilitar
will allow us
debate que já existia,
to carry out a discussion that was already present.
de trazer
And
alguma
this
abordagem,
discussion will
tentativa de
bring
resposta
an approach, a level of response
a questões
to
de fazer
the
teologia relevante
issues
para os
that are
africanos,
related to actually making relevant
e
theology
que
in
seja
Africa.
influenciado
And
pela teologia
may it be
local, não
influenced by local
pelos
theology
discursos
and
que
not by
herdamos do
what
colonialismo e
is
dos
inherited from
missionários.
colonialism and from the missionaries.
E ao mesmo tempo
And at the
sensíveis,
same
somos
time, we
sensíveis
want to be
a
sensitive
questões ambientais.
to the aspects of our climate.
África está no mundo e o mundo neste
Africa is
momento
in the
está
world And
numa crise ambiental.
right now we are experiencing an environment crisis. And thank you very much for your time.
Unmute, Afe. You are muted.
All right, no, thank you. Samuel, could you take down your PowerPoint? Yes, so obrigado, and thanks very much for your presentation on behalf of your team. We have one more project presentation before we go into conversation and Q&A. So it's my, let me also indicate that Dr. Ngale's project is advised by Professor Wenda Intaragwi. So the last presentation, but certainly not the least, would be by Dr. Akin-Otiko, and this project is advised by Professor Iyamjo, Henrietta Iyamjo. So Akin, take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, am I
Could you do a slideshow?
Yes.
Use the slideshow button.
That's what I'm doing. Okay, is it sharing now?
But not on slideshow mode. So go to slideshow, just on the top there.
Gonna do that right now.
Slideshow. All right, great.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, everybody. It's my delight to be here. I am presenting this on behalf of my team. And the title of our project is Nollywood and Evangelical Films, Exploring Nigerian Cinema in Relation to African Traditional Histories, Values, and Spirituality. Introduction.
You're still not on slideshow. Okay, do that and then say play from start. Yes, play from current or start. Up there.
Okay, all right. So the first slide was my introduction, so this is the second one. Okay, so why movie? Okay, so why movie? The study focuses on movies because they depict African realities and imagine paradigm shift in construction of African values, cultural and contemporary realities. Cinema has evolved through different epochs, portraying the same reality that includes spirituality, mysticism, and values. So we will be identifying how these realities have been depicted from the era of Ogunbiyi to contemporary Christian drama as exemplified in Nollywood and Mount Zion film. Given this reality, there is a serious need to interrogate the convergences and divergences of filmic genre in construct of elements bordering on African traditional histories, values, and spirituality. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at how reality has been presented in different eras and through different methods and genres of films. So what will be done in the project is, although a lot has been done already in cinematography, we will be comparing how these different genres have responded to the same African realities. We will, from different perspective and from different era. Of course, grounded theology and theory will help in highlighting our contributions. And our focus would also be on contributing to curriculum. To achieve this, the team will be interrogating African cultural realities and embedded historical antecedents through selected Nollywood and Mount Zion evangelical movies. So what will we be doing and contributing to knowledge? We will not just be highlighting African realities. We'll also not just be showing realities in different era. We'll be analyzing how producers and directors are interrogating these realities and compare Nollywood approach to Mount Zion approach. So we have some movies that we have selected, and the movies include, we have movies that we have selected, and the movies include mainstream Nollywood, Mount Zion Faith Ministry, and then, like I had said before, there's Ogunbiyi movie that was initially chosen, but because they are still celluloid movies, we're replacing them with Agile movies. They basically say and speak to the same realities using the same method. So the choice of these selected movies is based on the notion that cinema can tackle any subject in Africa. The home videos have emerged as a very powerful and popular medium of communication in Nigeria. This industry reflects and capture the realities that we're going to be dealing with. However, we realize that Pentecostalism, represented by the Mount Zion Faith Ministry, speaks to the same reality in a different way. And so that's what informed the selection of these movies. And of course, we're going to be comparing them. Now, what is our objective? First, we're going to be checking if Nollywood movies and Mount Zion movies reflect African values, spirituality, and aesthetic identity, if they do that. Second, how are these core principles of Christianity, that is spirituality, faith, miracles, and healing, salvation, and eschatology, conceived and portrayed in mainstream and Mount Zion films? How are these realities showcased? Third, how is historical, cultural, illicit content contained and projected by Mount Zion Faith Ministry in propagating Christian faith and its quest to reach a wide range of African and non-African audience? Fourth, what are the points of convergences and divergences between the mainstream Nollywood films and Mount Zion Faith films? And finally, we want to find out what the implications of the twists and trends in film studies and African theology on culture, evangelism, and education are. Now, what methodology are we adopting? We're going to be screening all selected movies, and the idea is to achieve the audience perspective and acceptance or rejectance of any of those movies and the approaches used, and also to see whether the producers are actually communicating properly, whether the audience would interpret and understand what the producers are doing. So that's the first thing we're doing. We're screening those movies, and we're going to be screening them in 3 locations in Nigeria. The second thing is we're going to be developing questionnaires that we're going to administer to the screening audience to get the grounded theology that we're looking for. Fourth, we're going to be doing key informal interviews of those stakeholders, the producers, the directors, the actors, students, and the public, just to know what they think of the movie and compare what they think with the ideas of the directors. Then we're also going to have focus group, but mainly in Lagos. Focus group because that's where we intend to have all the key players. The other places we're going to be screening the movies, it will be difficult to move the key players to those locations. Finally, analysis will be done using hermeneutics. And then we're going to be comparing the Nollywood movies with the Mount Zion movies to check the same reality, how they speak to the same reality differently. of course, we're going to do thematic and content analysis of whatever we have found. Now, the deliverables, as have been mentioned, is at least 2 articles or books will be produced out of the research. 1 conference or workshop will be produced, will be organized and delivered. The 3rd one, at least 1 international conference will be attended where the research data will be presented. And finally, we're going to develop some curriculum content as well as, and this will be reflected in the different areas where we have our expertise. Finally, it's good to talk about the research team. It's a 5-man team. We have 2 co-applicants. The PIs are 2, Dr. Olatunde James and myself. Now, you can tell from the multidisciplinary nature of the team that we're going to be responding to this project and from different perspectives. I have a background in African religion and cultural studies, and I'll be comparing the realities in the Agile movies with the Mount Zion movies. How these 2 types approaches speak to the same reality. Dr. Toyin will also be handling all cultural traditional elements, artistic impressions, as well as perspective elements employed in the selected movies. Dr. Francis Falako, who is a New Testament scholar and a church historian, would also engage evangelical films mission incursion into the Nollywood using the Mount Zion film industry. Dr. Florence Nweke, as a musicologist, would also analyze the appropriateness and effectiveness of the songs employed in these movies and how they also engage in theology. Finally, Dr. Paul Novo, he is a diaspora member of the team. He also has a background in literature and theology, and so he's also going to be engaging in the review of a lot of these things, and he also would help look up the possible literature that would help in this research. So basically, all 5 members will be working together. We've started our job, started our business, we have weekly meetings, and we also are in touch with our PA. So far, so good. We look forward to developing new theologies from what we have discussed today, and we hope the research will benefit us. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Akin-Otiko. Could you put down your screen?
Yep.
All right, wonderful. So it's 1 minute to the end of this session, but I think it's very important that we have a conversation with these 4 projects. So I'll use my prerogative as the chair of this session to recoup the time. So we'll take 15 to 17 minutes to have a conversation. So could we bring the 4 presenters, could we bring them to the floor? And then we would use the same procedure in terms of Q&A or discussion. But just as you are bringing them to the floor, let me make a very important footnote. One reason for getting the project leaders to share their project work is not simply because we are interested in what they have to say. Rather, we are also interested in the possibility for people to get outside their comfort zones. Put differently, we want this as a possibility for you to not just stay put in your disciplinary or in your project silos. We want you to reach out and identify your potential interlocutors. In other words, what are projects you are listening to that actually meet you somewhere, that you have common motivations, common ideas, common similar research questions, so that at the end of the day, you are thinking not just about your project, you're also thinking of project C and project F that could be possible collaborators on multiple levels, either at the level of brainstorming, but also at the level of perhaps your intended outputs and deliverables. So I want you, as we say in Nigeria, to shine your eyes and begin to identify those projects or colleagues that are really, speaking the same voice, but also sometimes different voices, in order to achieve a kind of an intellectual intercourse as we move forward with this project. So we have the 4 presenters, but not all of them.
Os 4 apresentadores estão aqui, mas
So
nem
it's now
todos
open for
estão
questions
no spotlight aqui, mas estão aqui. Perguntas?
So it's one thing to put your comment on the chat. Feel free if you want.
Podem comentar no chat, eu vi que já vários comentaram, mas se quiserem abrir o microfone e falar, podem falar.
You're also welcome.
I need them to share your screen.
Eu preciso que vocês compartilhem sua tela ou seu vídeo para eu destacá-los aqui.
Presenters, please turn on your video.
Por favor, apresentadores, liguem os seus vídeos.
And Samuel, can you turn off your Portuguese
Samuel Ngale, por favor, desliga a tradução, por favor. Já está fora, ok. Já está no off.
All right, so any questions for the 4 projects, the Ogunbiyi, Musili, Ngale, and Akin-Otiko's projects? Ask your question now or forever be quiet. Yes, we have Josiah. Josiah, please. Unmute and ask your question or comment.
Okay, thank you very much to the presenters. I'm mainly interested in the study that we will look at films, movies, and Pentecostalism. So I'm mainly interested in knowing how they will account for the differences that exist within the portrayal of Pentecostalism, for example, in movies, and the real practice that people have. Because in as much as I agree that movies mirror what happens in society, but we also know that Pentecostalism does not fit into a box easily. So there's need for our researchers to be able to identify the particular strand or the particular type of Pentecostalism that they're going to focus on and what is actually portrayed in the movie. So I just want to know more how they're going to select or try to address that, because Pentecostalism is not a one homogeneous, religion. That's probably my question.
Okay, so Akin, hold on to that while you're thinking about your response. We have 3 questions on the chat. Let me read that. One question from Benson to Ogunbiyi's project. I will be interested in the sacralizing of beaches, given their multifaceted social issues. So perhaps you have a take on that. There's another question from James Pickard to, I guess this is directed to Akin, a question for the film group. It appears that you are seeking the reactions / opinions of the viewers of the films and of their creators. That fits very well with hermeneutic analysis, but it does not explore the differences and similarities between the categories of films themselves. Can you use a genre analysis to identify the structural differences between the various categories of film? So take note of that. That's your second question to you. And another question from Reko to Samuel. Why the Songas, given the existence of other ethnic groups? So Samuel, you got that, yeah? Perhaps translators you could, okay. And then to Samuel again, from Rachel, to what extent are your African theologies different from Western theologies? So I think we do have a question for each of you except Musili. So would you want to take that, and then we will take a second round, perhaps prepare a question for Musili. So who is brave enough to start?
All right, so I can go for that.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, how are we going to distinguish between what is portrayed in movies and what is in reality? Like you said, Pentecostalism doesn't fit into any hole. It doesn't fit into any frame. And so we will not attempt to identify any particular frame. What we're going to be doing sounds pretty much like what we listen to today. What we see becomes what we're going to be presenting. So we're not going to be representing, because I mean, there are as many variants of Pentecostalism as there are churches. You know, it goes with the spirit. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go, whatever we get, we'll tell the story for us. So that's in response to the difference between what we see in movies and what is in reality. Regarding genre analysis, we appreciate that. We'll adopt that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So who would like to go next, Samuel or
yes.
Yes.
Why the Tsonga? Well, we had to start from somewhere. That is the beginning. We had to pick somewhere. But not just that, but we had to, Tsonga has a particular story in the whole region. And so that was really attractive to us. But just to relax everyone, what is going to happen with the study on Tsonga will not limit completely itself on Tsongas. It can be probably compared. And I believe in the course of our research, there is an interest in comparing what the Tsongas, the story of the Tsongas to the rest of 17 ethnic groups that compose Mozambique itself. So we had to pick from somewhere. That's the first question. The second one, to what extent your theology is different from the Western? Well, we are not looking at things from, first of all, how to put it? We are not yet, we have no enough substance to actually draw a theology to begin with. I'd rather have this question perhaps in a year from now or 2 years from now, then I can give an idea of what we have found in the field. But so the most important thing on this research is what are the values, religious values that the Tsongas of that particular location can contribute in terms of ideas that will help us build up a local theology that is relevant, to the questions that the communities are asking. In other words, we don't start with theologies. We actually hope to bring things from the field. That's why the methodology perhaps fits very well. The grounded theology fits very well, because we're actually trying to get there with no presuppositions, theological or theoretical whatsoever.
Thank you, Samuel. So, Dr. Ogunbiyi, any response to the question about the sacralizing of beaches, given the multifaceted social issues? Either you or Tayo could respond to that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I will allow Tayo to respond.
Okay.
If it's
Tayo? Tayo, are you there?
However, let me say this. It is believed that beaches are veritable source of religious encounter with the divine. And we are looking at it from the perspective of several religious traditions coming together on the same beach to reach out to their God, which is an evidence of a possibility of tolerance considering the African perspective to issues of sacrality. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any footnote to that, Tayo? We can't hear you. Sorry, we still can't hear you. You can come back to that when we have your audio sorted. I'm thinking about the time. Let me, perhaps, there are two questions on the chat for Samuel again, but let me interject that with two questions for Musili. So very interesting project. So my first question is, you've chosen three case study churches, and I'm wondering to what extent, even looking at this from the perspective of indigenous religious communities, you know, do you think that might add some juice to your comparative outlook? You know, simply, of course, just focusing on churches. Suppose you look at what is happening within an indigenous community. How are they interrogating COVID-19? Because there are also indigenous approaches to this. So that would be just something for you to think about. The second, I'm wondering to what extent the kind of questions you are asking are relevant or capture the post-COVID era, if there's a post-COVID era for now. Yeah. So how are you going to deal with a post-COVID era in terms of your thinking around using, you know, media, you know, resources? Then I will read the question for Samuel. Samuel, this is from Felix in Malawi. It seems you are going to deal with the issue of de-Westernization. What theoretical framework are you envisioning? Post-colonial, decolonial, Black theology, etc. So translators maybe make that intelligible to Samuel. I'm sure that his English is good anyway. So another question from Henrietta to Samuel. What methodological considerations are in place in the event that crisis escalate in some areas, considering what is happening in Mozambique? I hope you get what that question is about. And then the last one, Rachel, I'm not sure if this is addressed to you, Samuel. I think African theologies have shared commonalities with Western theologies, because even though Africans have distinct experiences, their experiences may also be very much similar to Western theologies. Of course, this is a comment and not a question. So let me give the floor to Musili first and then Samuel.
Thank you very much, Professor Hafe, for wonderful questions. Now, just I'll start with the indigenous groups. I would appreciate that comment. It would be indeed a wonderful encounter, just trying to bring them on board The only challenge is that within our study, we're looking at specifically the groups that have already presented and or rather had an online presence, and just to navigate, try to see how they navigated the COVID-19 deterrence as far as meeting points and physical meetings are concerned. But yeah, really quite interesting. It's something that we can always discuss with our project advisor and see how we could navigate that in the course of our research. With regard to COVID, post-COVID era, if we will get there, and probably we could pray that we get there soonest. I just wish to submit that distance church or virtual religion, so to say, has always been in place, mostly not in Africa, but we note that one of the churches that we've sampled, especially CITAM, they've always run a virtual church. And so one of the things that probably we need to see while we get to the fields is how they have navigated the space before COVID, during COVID, and probably try to anticipate together with them what the future would be. And of course, because virtual religion might just be here to stay, as we've already traced this from probably the Western studies, as highlighted by the likes of Aid Campbell in our studies. And so I think these are the submissions that I can make as at now. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Telesia. There's an additional advice from Mary to Samuel before you respond. You should not just say their choice of the songers was for the team to begin somewhere, for there should be a justifiable reason why this was chosen and not that. Otherwise, the study can end everywhere. Okay, so that is a food for thought. Samuel, what do you think?
Well, thank you for the advice. The last one, thank you. We are going to consider that. Regarding the theoretical framework, whether we're using post-colonial, colonial, well, here's the thing. We are now rehearsing how would you call it? Oh my God.
Could you say that in Portuguese?
Yeah, well, actually, yes, it's just, my mind just got a little bit, but we really are not we are not stacking into one particular theoretical framework. We're going to use what is really easy to express the values and religious values, spiritual values, cultural values of our subjects. We're not at this point. We're not really stuck into, yes, we want to look at this information only from this particular angle. We need to loosen up how we approach the subjects. The same go with what methodological framework. Yeah, we're hoping after this workshop to be really good at using grounded theology as a method, as an approach will provide us. So we are still rehearsing things, rehearsing ideas, nothing fixed at this point. But we already know at least that we have to go to the field, we have to collect data, and we're going to use some information from the methods we're going to come out with in this conference.
Yeah, thank you, Samuel. I think we are running out of time. I want to close this, but before that, Damaris has her hand up, and there's crossing boundaries already. Rachel is asking Samuel and Olatunde to link up on curriculum development. We are in the same boat. So take note of that. And I think it's good to sound that warning. Break from your comfort zone and identify interlocutors. So Damaris, you have the last word here.
Thank you, Afe. Thank you, everyone. These are all very rich projects, and I have an interest in all of them. But my question is specifically to the Nigerian group, the Nollywood group. And in light of what we have studied yesterday and all that we have soaked in, I'm just curious to understand what kind of grounded theologies do you think are mediated by Nollywood films? And also, how do you think that the Nollywood films shape Pentecostalism and vice versa? And I'm really thinking about its consumptionist tendencies, its ideas about witchcraft, healing and dreams, and how you think that is going to shape the kind of grounded theology you find in the field. And you don't have to answer that, but I just think that it's really important that you think along that line. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, so thank you, Damaris, for that very important point, and I'm sure that the team will take note of that. And Retif also has chipped in an important point regarding reminding us of what the point Bruce made about grounded theology, building theory, rather than theory should serve as the starting point, which underscores what Samuel was trying to get at. So, yeah, so I think let this brainstorming continue, but I think it's good at this point to give a clap offering to Samuel, Akin, Telesia, and Olatunde. Let's do that in a Pentecostal way. Yeah. All right, so we take a break as we are still thinking of these issues.